Good evening, and thank you for tuning in. This is Street Talk, and I'm Father Russ Carmichael, and with me tonight is my hostess, Tambria Moore. Beside me, as you can see, is Bob Stone, and across from me is Jack Casey. They are from the Patriot Guard, and hopefully we'll have a very informative show for you tonight. And I'm going to turn it over like I did last week, for those of you who follow us, to Tambria, and she was good enough to get these gentlemen here, and they're going to tell you what they're about.
Well, the Patriot Guard, I was curious about online. Many of us, especially recently here in Connecticut, have seen the returning military coming back, our war dead, and when we see on the media the coverage, you will most often see a lot of motorcycle riders, a lot of flags, and maybe you wonder who these people are. I did. And so I did some research, and I found that they were the Patriot Guard riders, and this is representatives of the Connecticut chapter, and we're going to sit here and talk about how they got started, what they're about, and how you can get involved. And I want to just open up with Bob. Tell us, how did the Patriot Guard get started?
The Patriot Guard started about 5 years ago in Kansas, and it was really a response to a group of protesters that were showing up at local funerals for our military heroes, and some members of the American Legion, I believe it started with 4, took exception to this and said, you know, there must be something that we can do about this. And from those 4, they started the Patriot Guard Riders. And in the last 5 years, we've gone from the original 4 members to, I believe the last count was nationwide, just shy of 200,000 patriots across the nation. We are in every state. And we believe it's the right thing to do. That's, I think, at the core of why all of us do what we do. It's the right thing to do.
And I think when I see it, it tends to not only remind the viewer who's watching the 5 o'clock news or the 6 o'clock news about their connection with, you know, freedom isn't free, but it also gives us some ceremony that those of us who aren't going to attend the services can participate in. We see kind of an embrace of our military, which here, of course, being in New London with the Navy and the Coast Guard and the National Guard, really every branch here, we tend to think about them Memorial Day, 4th of July, Veterans Day,
Not in between.
and funerals.
and funerals.
And maybe
you know,
when they're dispatched, if you know the family, but not as much because the media doesn't cover it. But it does cover funeral services to some extent, and more so now since the new administration has changed some of the rules about following servicemen when they return to our country. One of the things that I enjoyed reading about your program is you don't insert yourself into this process. It's at invitation of the family. Can you talk about that?
The Patriot Guard, our primary mission is to attend the funerals and memorial services of America's fallen heroes, both KIA and veteran. Our secondary mission is to protect the dignity of that service with our bodies and flags in the event that protesters or uninvited guests, as we call them, are present. So, I'm sorry, repeat your original question.
Well, the question is, instead of going to the families or just being there because you know there's a funeral, this is at invitation of the family. How does that happen?
That is correct. The Patriot Guard will only come as invited guests of the family, and that's a very important distinction between us and those that we would consider uninvited guests. Exactly how that happens, it's unique almost every time. Sometimes I will get a call from a family member. Sometimes I'll get a call from a friend. very often I'll get a call from a Patriot Guard member. You know, Bob, this
I know
guy
this
was a
person,
friend of
a
mine,
friend,
served in
and,
Vietnam.
yes.
Other times we'll get a call from the funeral home. In the years that we've been out serving in Connecticut, it seems that the more our name gets out there, the more different arenas, you know, this information will come in. I've even had the media approach me.
It
which
seems
is
like
unusual.
you would have to have some kind of command center orchestrating, which I've kind of watched with our local heroes that have recently come home. Is there's this whole email going out, spamming out to all the riders and potential riders. You've got interaction with airports. You've got interaction with the military. You've got interaction with the media. Who orchestrates that? Thank you.
Not only myself, but I have a very fine leadership team, of which Jack Casey is a part of, one of our ride captains. No man or woman can run this show alone. There's just so much going on that you really have to have a very competent, dedicated team behind you to make everything come off.
And in the last two that I've observed as I've watched this, I noticed that in both occasions, you start at one airport and then the plane gets rerouted to another airport, and it's sudden, you know.
We have to deal with, number one, a lot of different agencies and entities, organizations. One of them being the military, of course, which, you know, there are heroes. The military does have to abide by certain things. I'm a veteran,
Correct.
Jack's a veteran. We know, you know, there's operational security.
Right.
And in this particular case that you're referring to, that was always part of operational security because apparently there was some concern that there might be uninvited guests there. And I believe that concern really looms all the time, you know, with every mission that comes down, every service member we lose, there's always that possibility. Fortunately,
it's tragic, though, that we have to deal with that possibility.
Beyond words.
It is beyond words.
Beyond words.
Yeah, it is beyond words, that one has to deal with that, and you know, and that disrespect that comes out of that, you know, and at those times, you know, it's
Well, as
tragic.
soon as he makes a call that it was switching from Providence down to Groton, is can you go over there and take a look and see what we, you know, where are we going to run into, and especially traffic-wise, as we watched to see what time he was coming. We had to figure out which is the best way to get out of here, because we got a long convoy of people and 2 different states, 2 different state police agencies. It was quite well. That worked. Everything worked well. Our whole job is safety. We're watching to make sure every intersections are covered, that the riders and the cars, everybody's safe. Everybody knows exactly what we're going to do. What will you do if more people come in?
And state and local law enforcement does such a wonderful job of supporting our organization and the heroes that we stand for. It's phenomenal. You know, moving that many bikes in cages, or as we call cars, vehicles, it's logistically, it can be very difficult and it can be very dangerous. And just thank God for LEO, law enforcement, because without them, our job would be much harder.
And that's another aspect of your group, is you're not only riding for our military vets, but you ride for law enforcement vets. I'm seeing, as I'm looking online, not only do I see people riding for deceased, I'm watching veteran. There was a veteran who was fundraising, and he was riding a bicycle across country.
Yes, I
rode with
that.
him. The Healing Wall, the Vietnam Wall, riding with that. You know, so it's not just military procession, or you know, procession of a casket.
We have primary missions, of which we call honor missions. Those are for KIA or veteran, killed in action or veterans. But there are so many other things that we do, being military and veteran support organizations. We have to put our best foot forward toward our primary mission. But there are send-offs, there are welcome homes,